Thanks for listening to the Tech Tools for Teachers podcast, where each week we talk about a free piece or two of technology that you can use in your classroom. I'm your host, Shanna Martin. I'm a middle school teacher, technology coach, and personalized learning coordinator for my district.
And live from Quarantine Central, I'm her husband and producer, Fuzz.
Yay.
How's it going?
It's going well, actually. We're kicking off week 3 here in quarantine, and
yeah,
I think everyone's figuring out the new normal.
New normal.
I don't think any day is normal.
One of my employees had a funny tweet the other day. It said, "I feel like I haven't texted my wife in 3 weeks."
Cute.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the new normal. Everyone's staying in and finding new ways and creative ways of doing things. And there's a lot of ed tech happening here.
There is. It's a buzz. There's
a lot going on. I've done some support with various people, and there's so much to learn very quickly. So it's kind of interesting how things are going, and people are creating new ways of using, ed tech, and so yeah, that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah, and a lot of educators are looking for different ways to connect with their students at home and reaching out to you, which has been great. And you've had a number of inquiries from different tech places.
Yeah, that's kind of
reaching
fun.
out. You had an interesting inquiry, what I'm not sure if is legit or not, but from somebody from CNN.
Yeah.
And we'll see
how
that goes on Monday.
How it pans out. Yeah. But anyway, so this week, because I know everyone's kind of overwhelmed. I know that we're getting into this new normal routine, but at the same time, it's still tricky. Mm-hmm. And I know a lot of teachers are testing out some new types of video conferencing.
Yes.
So this week, we're talking about if you've got the Zoomies, which I'm laughing about. So I don't know if everybody refers to it, but if your dog is really antsy.
Yes.
And your dog gets the Zoomies, where they
start running around the house and want to play. Yeah.
And they jump on furniture and they wiggle their butt and run all over the place. Well, we call our dog she gets the Zoomies.
7:00 every night.
And so, of course, I don't know if anyone can pick up the reference. I'm going to talk about Zoom today.
Yes.
But we're all a little antsy and cagey. And so I was like, it's the Zoomies, because we're talking about Zoom and we're all a little antsy. So this week's theme, it's a mini episode. We're just going to focus on Zoom and then a couple tips and tricks and things like that when we're doing some video stuff with teachers and students. So
I do have to say, before we even get into this, when we're talking about video conferencing, so we're all work from home. I mean, everybody pretty much should be, but my ad agency is work from home. Mm-hmm. Right now, we have 85 employees, and we haven't, so between GoToMeeting, Slack, Zoom, we have not missed a beat. So to think of the bandwidth and scale that all of these companies have to put forth, they're handling this marvelously.
And if you get a little slower, sometimes they get a little disruptive. Keep in mind.
Yeah.
3/4 of the country is doing this, while the other quarter of the country, or half the country, is handling everything outside for us. So
GoToMeeting, when you start a meeting with them, they have during this time, they have a little tip up that says, in order to reduce meeting start time issues, try to start your meeting either 5 minutes before or 5 minutes after the top of the hour.
Oh, that's interesting.
Because everybody joins on right at 0.
Right.
And so their thought is, if you join at 11:55 for a noon meeting or 12:05,
to kind of distribute
that it will have fewer issues.
Cool. All right.
So anyway, yeah.
Let's jump in. So Zoom. We are starting with Zoom. If you have not ever done Zoom, or if you're kind of testing it out, Zoom is a great free resource for video chatting. I know some teachers, it's different. Every district has their own rules now, and some districts aren't sure what kind of rules to have. And it's interesting because this is a platform that some schools, like there are online schools where this is how we learn, but the majority of us, this is kind of like supplemental usually. It's not an everyday learning experience. So I use Zoom just to connect with my students weekly. So it's not me doing formal teaching in front of like a whiteboard or something like that. Like Zoom, I send out an invite to my students and I'm like, hey, we're all going to sit down and chat at 2:00 on this day. Whoever can jump in. And so they've started joining in, and it's fun because they get to see each other and we have conversations, kind of like mental health check-ins along with some schoolwork stuff. So it's a combination. And I'm going to talk about some other video things too that I do, but something about Zoom that stepping onto a new platform as a teacher, those of us that are in Google all the time. So Google Meet is also an option. If you've got Google email at school, you can do a Google Meet. You put in your little like code and everyone types it in and they can join your meeting, which is great. And Google has put some settings on there to make it safer in schools. But I know a lot of districts are using Zoom because you can pull up a whiteboard and you have other options with Zoom that you don't have necessarily with Google Meet. But again, Google Meet, if you're doing a school district thing, sometimes that's a better choice. It just depends on where you're at. But in Zoom, there's a few things as a new teacher coming onto Zoom that you should kind of pay attention to, because there's a lot of settings in Zoom that you're going to want to make adjustments to, so the kids aren't just causing havoc on the computer, because they do that. So to begin with, you go to zoom.us, I think. Is it zoom.us? That's what I've got.
Zoom.us, correct.
And sign in with Google. And something else to pay attention to: if you're signing in with your school email address, you will have different kind of requirements. There's more freedoms because they're doing things for teachers right now. Versus if you sign up for Google with a personal Gmail, then you just get the regular Zoom stuff. So if you use a school email, they're more flexible with what they're allowing you to use right now. So I have 2 accounts, and so my teacher account has more things offered to me in the free version, because again, we're always going for the free stuff.
Exactly.
So you're going to go to profile, and within your profile, you have like your meeting ID, your normal sign in, your linked accounts, all that kind of stuff. Make sure you set your time zone to be the correct time zone. We noticed today, I tried to set up a meeting and for some reason my time zone was different. So pay attention to the time zone. And that's just like your basics in your profile. If you go under meetings, that's where you schedule a meeting. You literally click schedule a meeting and you sign everything up, type in a title, that type of thing. Where it really matters, webinars you won't be able to do unless you have a paid version. Recordings, also something to be really aware of, like recording things. Keep in mind if you're using a school account, like you're going to want to, if you want to record yourself, my suggestion is to use something like Screencastify, not necessarily Zoom, unless you want to record a teaching session. And then if you're not worried about student interaction with your teaching session, then I suggest you record in a different place, just because of school expectations. And then under settings. So if you're new to Zoom and maybe you've been around a while, but they've changed some of the settings that happen. So automatically now, literally on the 26th, they switched to, when you go to schedule a meeting, host video and participant video will automatically be turned off. You physically have to turn on video for those things. So that has changed very recently because of too many teachers saying, I have kids on video, and they're like, before I get to the meeting, they're like being mean to each other and stuff. Something to be aware of. If you scroll through, there's a long list in settings that you want to be aware of. So things like join before host. Do you want kids to be able to be in a meeting before you're there, or do you want to be there to regulate them? Requiring a password or scheduled new meetings. Make sure that your meetings are private, where only your students can see your link. You don't want your link to get to your Zoom meeting out there in the world. So don't make those public. Like I post mine in my Google Classroom, so I know my students see them in my Google Classroom.
But you don't want to post it on
just like
Facebook.
Don't just post them out there, because then anybody can go to your meeting. You can do one-click join or put a password in there if you want to. And then mute participants upon entry. That's something if you don't want kids talking to each other, be aware of that. You can send the reminders go out automatically. The other thing to pay attention to as a teacher is the chat features. So if private chat is on, that means that participants can send one-to-one messages to each other, meaning that students can message each other without you being able to see it. Mm-hmm. Versus, I suggest just turn that off.
Yes.
Turn it off.
Yep.
Because what you can do is you can have the chat on, and that's public, so everyone can see the chat. So it's fine that kids are talking to each other. They're super excited to see you. They're super excited to see each other. They can chat back and forth. But then it's recorded, and it's the public chat. Turn the private chat off.
Yeah.
Because you won't see what kids are saying to one another.
Right.
And you can't get that back.
Yep.
So something to pay attention to. Also, like there's little sound things where it can ding when people leave the meetings. And then, you can add surveys. You can all do these different things. Screen sharing also, like you can screen share, or you can have host only, so you're the one screen sharing, or you could have students sharing, depending on if you're having like a class discussion.
Yep.
That would be a great time to have screen sharing.
They also allow multi-share on there, so you can have more than one screen share going on at a time.
Correct, which is awesome. But if you don't want kids like bebopping into your session while you're teaching, then turn the screen sharing off so the kids aren't like stepping over when you're trying to teach stuff.
Yep.
There's a whiteboard option, so you can have the whiteboard, and then also there's an auto save whiteboard, which is cool, where that way it'll save like as you're doing stuff. Again, scrolling down, breakout rooms is another one. If you want students to be able to split off into smaller groups and go have little group side chats, then you would keep the breakout room on. I don't see that going well. Maybe older students having discussions on something.
Yeah.
But breakout rooms, maybe not the best idea if you don't want students having chats, again, without you regulating what's going on.
Can you pop into those at any time, or how does that work?
It allows the host to split meetings, so you can split in to kid, like you split it up.
But you can't be obviously everywhere at once. Yeah,
right, you can't be in, like if 4 kids are having side conversations, you can't regulate everybody. What's very cool about Zoom, you can put closed captioning on though. So for students that need closed captioning, that is an option. You can also save the captions, which is cool because then it can be used for transcripts later on. Definitely useful. Virtual backgrounds, we'll get back to that a little bit later on because it's kind of fun. It's an option, a fun option. And then you can auto answer in group chat. So if you, honestly, this is really long. Like there's the waiting room. Do you let people have a waiting room or not? Invitation by email is usually a good idea. And then like scheduling and things like that. So honestly, if you have not used Zoom, or if you've only used it with adults and not used it with students, go into the settings and go through the settings on your Zoom. It's really important because these kids also have not had freedom like this where they're able to video chat all the time. They know how to do it in Google Hangouts. They do it on their phones. But when you put 20 to 30 kids in a Zoom chat together, there's cool things to do, but also something
can get you in trouble
to really be aware of.
Yeah.
So do that. Go through those Zoom settings. And what a cool experience, though. I like Zoom because you can load a whole class in at once, and everyone, if they choose to, they can also turn their cameras off, but all the kids can see each other. So like as you're talking like a teacher, you're like, oh my gosh, I can actually see their faces and see their reactions, versus I know a lot of times in Google Meet you only can see 4 to 6, and it's a little bit different like setup wise. So Zoom is awesome. Check your settings when you're using Zoom. You have a Zoom tip for everybody.
I do. I have a couple of them.
Please share.
One is, I believe this is turned on automatically when you open Zoom or when you first download Zoom, but it's their push to talk feature. And so what this does is it allows you to mute yourself when you go into a meeting.
So if everyone's muted, if you mute people upon arrival, like they're muted, does this work with that too? Or
well, no. So if you mute everyone upon arrival, they can't unmute themselves.
Okay.
But if you go into a room, you can set it so that you mute yourself when you go into a room first. Mm-hmm. So let's say you're having a meeting with other teachers or whatever that might be, or students. But especially now that we're all working from home at the moment, mm-hmm. we've got kids around, lots of stuff going on in the background. Dogs.
Cats.
This push to talk feature is awesome. So if you put yourself on mute, you can push the space bar on your computer to unmute yourself temporarily. So the microphone is only working when you're pushing down the space bar, and then when you let off, it goes back to mute.
It's kind of like the old school microphones like you used to use in the office. You push to talk. So you push
exactly,
talk, and then let go. And so your space bar becomes that tool.
Yeah, so that's a very cool tool for, especially if you're on a staff meeting or something with a lot of people, and you you're not dictating to the class, or as a teacher you don't probably need your mute on most of the time talking mm-hmm. to kids, but mm-hmm. when you're talking to,
or you're listening in on things like longer big group things, or district Zoom sessions. Mm-hmm.
The other tip, a little bit more aesthetic, is if you go into your Zoom settings. By the way, if you don't have push to talk enabled, just you click on your picture in Zoom, go mm-hmm. to settings, audio, and then click enable push to talk with the space bar. There's a line there for that. Also in settings, if you go to video and then click touch up my appearance, it'll slightly tune you up a little bit so you look a little bit better online.
Where's that at?
It's if you go to settings and then go to video.
Okay.
And on the desk, it has to be on the desktop version.
Okay.
You're on the
I'm on the
online version. Yeah. So
we always had this discussion. There's like the little toolbar at the top where you can go to Zoom, or you can use like the website, mm-hmm. and so you have different features within the little toolbar versus. I've noticed that a lot.
One other thing I would recommend for any video conferencing that you're doing, if you're struggling with your video cutting out at home mm-hmm. a lot, a few things I would do if you have a number of family members, obviously, that are at home and watching videos, doing other stuff. Mm-hmm. If you have important video conference meetings, I would recommend that you have them pause and just do something not on the internet during your, especially like downloading music or video, thing like that.
Right,
TikTok, exactly. Mm-hmm. The other thing that I would recommend is on your own computer, I would recommend closing as many tabs as you can in Chrome, closing as many apps that you may have open. Mm-hmm. And if you have a backup system, like a cloud storage backup that runs, that uploads files to the internet constantly. And what I would recommend you do is if you can pause that, a lot of times it'll be in your menu bar up at the top of the screen. If you go to your backup system and pause that, you might not have one, but if your IT has put one in and you have the ability to pause it, I would pause it while you're doing the video conference.
Cool. I like it.
And then, but don't turn it off. Just pause it temporarily, because if you turn it off and you forget to turn it on and you lose something.
All right.
There we go.
Yeah. We're all learning to work in the same house together. So, some fun things about Zoom, and I said it kind of before in the settings, where it talks about virtual backgrounds. So, depending on your computer, and not every computer can do it, not every Chromebook can do it, so I'm telling you now, not everyone can do this, but if you want to do something kind of fun with your students, or you can as a teacher to, show them that you're teaching in Hogwarts, you can use Zoom virtual backgrounds.
Yep.
To look like you're someplace that you're not.
Mm-hmm.
Again, Hogwarts would be pretty awesome. But if you want to put like school logo behind you, something, a little school spirit, jazz it up, you are able to put virtual backgrounds in Zoom. So you go into settings, go into virtual backgrounds. You guys can do that. If it talks about having a green screen, we all don't have those at home.
Nope.
A green piece of fabric works, or dollar store tablecloths, green tablecloths worth. If you need the green screen to make the virtual background.
Yeah.
What's cool is that we've talked about Canva before, canva.com. They have free Zoom virtual background maker in Canva, and they have a whole section on it. And you can take their templates and design your own cool Zoom background. And then you can create it. And it shows you in Canva, it tells you exactly step by step, like choose your background, create it, add your personal touches, and then it shows you, it gives you the directions exactly how to put those into your Zoom.
I'm playing around with one right now. I have they have video backgrounds too. It's not just pictures, but I'm on a beach right now. There's a palm tree blowing in the wind, waves crashing on the shore, and here I am. It's actually raining outside. It's 10 o'clock at night as we're recording this. It's pretty cool.
So I will put the directions and the Canva stuff into my blog. So that way, if you want to test out fun like video and animated Canva free backgrounds for Zoom, you can do that too.
Yeah. Also, the backgrounds are very good. Also, if you have children running around the house.
Yes. Or if you want to hide dirty laundry or your dining room or just stuff everywhere.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
It's kind of entertaining for your students too. Like if they don't never know, like, oh, where are they going to show up today? It's kind of another fun way to pull in, engagement.
Another thing real quick. Put that light in front of you. Don't have the...
I'm going through my to-dos and not to-dos.
I'm sorry. I didn't... You're right.
Those are my to-dos and not to-dos.
Let's let me not get ahead of you on here.
So go ahead. What is the first do? What is the first tip? I'm not going to go through the whole list. I like 20 things here. But
first tip.
Light your face. Explain it.
Light your face. So you want the light in front of you, not behind you. So if you have a big picture window behind you and not more light in front of you, you're going to show up like a dark shadow, and it's just going to be a bright white light behind you. So best bet is to turn yourself around and have that light shining on your beautiful face, and then you will be properly illuminated.
Nice.
We have one employee who has a sunroom that she does her stuff in, and it's like, it's just like gorgeous lighting, and then the rest of us look like trolls in a basement. But I would as much light as you can get. Yeah, do that. Natural light, great. Otherwise, like at my desk here, I have a. We actually turned it around because I was facing the sliding windows at first, and now
you're in the other part of the dining room.
Yeah.
Cool. Just a couple of things like to think about. Remember that like when you're doing your Zoom sessions through district, if you've signed up with school email, you're connected to all your school stuff, like district things. It's all connected. Like you're not away from it. So, common courtesy, things are school appropriate, timely, like all that kind of stuff. Think about that with students, like Zoom sessions. I know that in my district, at least, we've got several kids and parents, and people are working, people are doing school. You may not get every kid coming to every Zoom session because they physically can't. If there's 3 or 4 people sharing a computer, what may not happen. So just like be common courtesy when it comes to like Zoom sessions and video things like that. Just be aware of the situation. Making sure that you are recording in a public place. I mean, obviously public in your home, kitchen, dining room, living room. Just be aware of where you're filming. Things to do, like practice turning off your camera, maybe not with your students right away, turning off your camera, turning off your volume or muting audio, and making sure that you actually know how to do that before you're Zooming with kids. Because you need to know how to run the system, test out with teachers, chat with friends before you go full on with a full teaching thing. Silence all our devices. I know some of us, you're like on a phone, you're answering a text message and you're Zooming at the same time, but turn off the sounds on that because it throws off the Zoom session sometimes if you can't hear. You get distracted on what's going on.
Yep.
So yeah, just a couple of things. And remember to close the session link. When you are done, close out. That way kids don't continue conversations when you are not there. And check and save that auto chat. Like check in on the chat that's going on while you're doing a session. That's really important as well.
Indeed.
The last little bit I have was a little Zoomy things. One little kind of tip I talked about before, if you are doing more of like a longer session where you're talking and like your students may need to come back to this discussion because they can't take notes as fast as you're talking, or if kids need to go back and work at their own pace, or maybe they need to see something later on in the evening.
Yep.
I suggest you use Screencastify because you can screencast your screen, you can talk, you can explain things, you can just do video. You don't have to do the screen if you don't want to. And then students can come back to that over and over and over again. Screencastify, we talked about it in episode 5 way back in the day. It saves to your Google Drive, so they are saved automatically. They drop really nicely into Google Classroom, so you are able to screencast what you need to, share your information, and then kids can come back to it. And right now, Screencastify for educators, their 5-minute limit for the free version they have lifted for the next month. So you can do unlimited screencasting with Screencastify right now, which is fantastic. That is my go-to when it comes to self-paced work with my students and like my morning announcements and all those types of things. So they see lots of little videos from me throughout the day. I suggest you put the Screencastify extension on your computer.
Yeah, if you are using Zoom, click the record button.
If you're going to record.
If you want to record that, you click the record button, and also you click save the audio as well, and it will save the audio separately. So if somebody wants to just listen on your computer, you will get an audio only M4A file, and you'll also get the MP4 with both.
Yeah, so if you want to save your Zoom session, you definitely can.
Yep.
That's an option. But if you just want to do short videos of yourself that kids can access throughout the day, then I suggest you use Screencastify.
Yep. Absolutely.
So those are all of our things this week in episode 53.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
One other thing. So we use Slack at our agency, and I don't recommend that for schools, but Microsoft Teams is another one that a lot of people use. And
there's actually one of my former students who is in college. They're using Microsoft Teams for his group work, what he's using.
So if you go to, if you just search Microsoft Teams for schools, it says IT Pros sign your entire school up, get your school signed up for free for Microsoft Teams. So I'm not familiar with Teams. I haven't used it. I know that a lot of big corporations use it, and it's Microsoft, so it's got to be at the very, very least serviceable.
I'm assuming it's like Google Meet.
Yeah.
Depending if you're Google School or you're a Microsoft
school.
So
what I've heard from my friends who use it at work is it's not as good as Slack or some of the other ones, but it is, or it's not as good as Slack, but it's cheaper.
Gotcha.
And it's good. It's serviceable. But schools can definitely use it, and they have it for free for your entire school. So,
cool.
So check that out, Microsoft Teams.
All right.
Cool.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in. This has been the Tech Tools for Teachers podcast. If you have the Zoomies, hopefully you don't anymore. If you ever have any questions, you can find me on Twitter at SmartInWI. And if you want to get more information on the links to the technology discussed in this episode, you can visit smartinwi.com or find me on Facebook at Tech Tools for Teachers. And new episodes each week. Thanks for listening. Go educate and innovate and stay healthy and safe.
Yes. Stay indoors. The ideas and opinions expressed in this podcast and the Smart NWI website are those of the author, Shanna Martin, and not of her employer. Prior to using any of the technology we discussed on this podcast, please consult your employer regulations. This podcast offers no guarantee that the tools we've discussed will work for you as described, but we sure hope they do. And we'll talk to you again real soon. Thanks for listening to the Tech Tools for Teachers podcast.